With Germany and the United States agreeing to send tanks to Ukraine, Moscow deems the decision a fatal mistake. Iran hits back with its own set of sanctions against 30 European individuals and institutions.
Fuel tourism in Hungary as drivers cross the border to take advantage of cheaper prices in neighbouring countries.
The Ukrainian president has hailed the decision to send advanced battle tanks to the war zone a tank coalition. Volodymyr Zelensky was thankful that Germany and the United States agreed to send Leopard 2 and 31 M1 Abrams. Experts say it should be enough to equip 2 Ukrainian tank battalions. But it'll take months before the armoured vehicles arrive, and then there's the crucial training needed to operate them. Zelensky says the key now is speed and volume. The speed of training our military, the speed of supplying tanks to Ukraine, the amount of tank support. We have to form a fist of tanks, a fist of freedom, which will not allow tyranny to rise again. The Pentagon says it'll start training Ukrainians very soon, ahead of a springtime Russian offensive.
These tanks are not going to get there for many months, and I understand that. But those Leopards won't take quite as long to get there as the Abrams. And we're not wasting the time. I mean, even as we procure these tanks, we're going to be, the Pentagon will very soon start doing the training for Ukrainian tankers, Ukrainian troops that man tanks, so that they can be ready to receive once those tanks are on the battlefield.
Kyiv believes the arrival of the tanks will be a turning point in the fight against Russia. However, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says they'll burn like all the others. And Russian President Vladimir Putin says the plan to send tanks to Ukraine is extremely dangerous and spoils the possibility of peace talks.
Europe's top human rights court has ruled that cases brought by the Netherlands and Ukraine against Russia for alleged human rights violations in eastern Ukraine in 2014 are admissible. This includes the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. The court said a judgment on the merits of the case will follow at a later date. All 298 people on board the plane died when it plunged to the ground after being hit by a surface-to-air missile fired by Russian-backed separatists. The ruling marks significant progress in efforts to hold Moscow legally accountable for its actions in the breakaway Luhansk and Donetsk regions of Ukraine.
Iran has announced sanctions against more than 30 European individuals and entities. The move is in response to recent European sanctions against Iranian officials linked to a crackdown on nationwide protests. Those targeted with sanctions include Britain's Attorney General and Army Chief of Staff, several European parliamentarians and military officials. French intellectual Bernard-Henri Lévy and 3 senior staffers at the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo have also been targeted. Euronews spoke to Dutch MEP Thijs Ruijten, who is one of those who's been blacklisted.
I think they are in panic and they feel very weak. That's why they move to these kind of measurements. And it's bizarre that the regime thinks that they can silence the European Parliament. The contrary is true. I'm even more motivated to continue our efforts to name the Revolutionary Guard for what it is, a terrorist organization that is terrorizing its own people and also waging terrorist methods outside Iran.
The MEP says that being sanctioned by Tehran makes them even more committed and determined to support Iranians against the regime.
What about the scandal?
Personally, there is not much impact because I feel even more encouraged to continue to support the Iranians in Iran that are resisting their regime and fighting for freedom. So I think politically we will even be more motivated and more vocal what we think of this regime.
Meanwhile, Iran claims the latest EU sanctions made a week ago breached the UN Charter. Iranians have been protesting against the regime since the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was arrested by the morality police for allegedly violating Iran's strict Islamic dress code last September.
Fuel tourism is flourishing along the Hungarian border. Crossing the Danube to a petrol station in Parkani, Slovakia, dozens of cars with Hungarian license plates. With December inflation in Hungary running at 24.5% compared to 15.4% in Slovakia, it pays to shop abroad. We cross because petrol's cheaper here again. When the bridge opened 20-odd years ago, it was also the same. And I can tell you that we didn't just come for petrol. We also go to Lidl, where the beer and the cheese is also cheaper. Food prices are horrible in Hungary now, especially cheese. We have a business trip here in Parkani, and we thought we'd combine that with a lunch and shopping, and then we're obviously curious to see how much more favourable the fuel price is. It's not that much more favourable, the difference is about 10 euro cents. I filled up with diesel. Obviously the exchange rate of the euro is a little better now compared to the Hungarian forint. And that makes it a little more favourable. There are parts of Hungary where a trip across the border can yield even greater savings. About 1,500 people live in the town of Kubikhaza in southern Hungary. The town's mayor is not a fan of President Orbán or his party and has no qualms about crossing into Romania to fill up the town's fleet of municipal minibuses. As the head of a municipality, I can't waste money like our government does. We have therefore decided that we'll go from Kubikhaza to the petrol station next to a small town in Romania to refuel. It's about €0.25 cheaper per litre for fuel, and we have to refuel 2 or 3 times a month. So it does matter. The government claims there's huge 25% inflation in Hungary due to EU sanctions against Russia. Fuel and many products are cheaper in several neighbouring EU countries, such as Slovakia, Romania and Croatia.
Whoever fills up their car in Slovakia instead of Hungary can save around 8,000 Hungarian florins, or €20. The general experience is that it's worth going to neighbouring countries to fuel and shop from within a 30 to 40 kilometre area of the border.
Euronews, Slovakia. Meta says former US President Donald Trump will soon be reinstated to his Facebook and Instagram accounts, but with new guardrails. The new measures are to deter repeat offences, according to Meta's Vice President of Global Affairs. Nick Clegg says any violating content would be removed, and Trump would be suspended for between 1 month and 2 years. The former president responded on his own social media platform, Truth Social, saying the ban should never happen again to a sitting president.
A step back in time at Paris Fashion Week. From cabaret feathers to sleek suits and bathrobes, Dior is celebrating Josephine Baker and the best of the Roaring '20s. This season's anointed princess once commanded the stage of smoky jazz clubs, often draped in sequins. But for this collection, Dior designers looked beyond Baker's stage style and into her love of suits and intimate garments. The American-born French dancer, singer and actress broke boundaries in the 30s. She was also the first black woman to star in a major motion picture.
She immediately made very precise choices, very haute couture, where there were very modern cuts, but also pleated skirts with jumpers. It was also incredible to see her in uniform, because she was a woman who had been part of the French resistance, who had also fought for human rights. So I think she has an incredible awareness of what she could do with her fame. I think this is, after all, the aspect that interests me most in these women, who in any case, with their careers and their talents, can be models for the new generations, of which I am one.
Artwork by Micheline Thomas lines the catwalk, with larger-than-life portraits of black and mixed-race women, including Eartha Kitt, who built on the path opened by Josephine Baker.